1872. A ghost ship drifted under full sail. Her people gone. The brigantine Mary Celeste was an unremarkable ship by most standards, yet on November 5th, 1872, when she slipped out of New York Harbor, her departure carried a sense of promise. She was bound for Genoa, carrying 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, a cargo both valuable and volatile. At her helm stood Captain Benjamin Briggs, a man known for restraint, discipline, and devout faith. Sailing with him were his wife Sarah and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, rare companions on a merchant voyage. The crew numbered 7, competent and steady men who had no reason to suspect that their names would one day be etched into maritime mystery. The morning was crisp, the harbor waters restless but manageable. Families waved from the piers, their voices already fading into the low thrum of the Atlantic. The Mary Celeste, recently refitted, carried herself confidently, rigging taut, sails drawing, seams tight. Below decks, trunks were neatly stowed. Sarah had folded dresses carefully beside a small child's toys. In the captain's cabin, a Bible rested on the desk beside charts that mapped out a clear and ordinary course eastward. Briggs wrote in his journal that conditions were fair, spirits high. As the coastline shrank, life aboard settled into the rhythms sailors knew by heart. The cook prepared salted beef and hardtack, served with mugs of coffee that steamed in the cold air. Watches were kept faithfully, chronometers wound, sextants polished. The men sang low songs to break the silence of long shifts. At night, lanterns swung in the rigging, casting golden arches across the deck, where Sophia sometimes toddled under her mother's careful eye. There was nothing ominous in those first days, only the unspoken contract between ship and sea. Yet within a month, the Mary Celeste would be found adrift, intact but deserted, a vessel abandoned by all who once animated her timbers. Days string into a work in rhythm, positions marked, noon sights taken, pumps tested, canvas aired when weather allows. The cargo, alcohol sealed in oak, sweats faint fumes when the sun leans hard at noon. The mate notes it and moves on. A child laughs at a length of knotted rope, and grown men feel the deck ease under the joke. The Atlantic makes room and takes it back, and the brigantine answers with obedient creaks. Then the weather turns contrary, not furious, but inventive. Squalls that arrive thin as whips, calms that trap the ship in a varnished stillness. Pumps pull a taste of bilge no worse than any other voyage. The galley clatter steadies nerves. Briggs keeps the crew close to their drills, storm canvas readied, lashings renewed, hatches dogged and undogged, always the balance between air and tightness. On a mid-ocean night, the horizon shears itself from the sky and the ship hangs in the seam. The barometer falls, recovers, deceives. In the morning, a pale sun pushes through, wide as a coin. The log remains tame, wind light to moderate, course adjusted, all well. And yet there is a new carefulness to the way boots touch the deck, as if the timbers are listening. Far astern, a steamer shows smoke and then loses itself in haze. On the chart, the Azores wait like stepping stones, but the sea is a patient reader, and it is reading them all. December 4th, 1872. The British brigantine Dei Gratia sights a vessel yawing oddly north of the Azores. sails ragged but drawing, helm unattended, course a wandering script on the water. Captain Morehouse closes carefully, signals unanswered. A boarding party pulls across, oars knocking small echoes into the sea that no one wants to hear. On deck they find wet footprints that end in nothing, lines frayed as if worry had rubbed them, a mainsail nicked but serviceable. The lifeboat is gone. The companionway smells of damp wood and stale meal. In the cabin, a sewing machine stands with its needle threaded, a breakfast left without a hand to finish it, a child's slate chalk marked and wiped again. The ship's papers are mostly present. The chronometer and sextant accounted for. The cargo largely intact. The pumps, one jammed by sediment, the other stubborn, tell their own small story. In the hold, there is some water, not enough to drown a brigantine of this size, but enough to make the board speak underfoot. The last log entry, 9 days old, places the ship near Santa Maria. No sign of violence. No blood, no broken chests, no haste that spilled valuables. Just a readiness frozen in place, as if the ship had shrugged and the people had slipped off like a coat. The Dei Gratia, crew, sober men accustomed to storms and bad luck, stand in that quiet and feel something colder than weather. They light the lamps. They sail the ghost home. Examination becomes liturgy. Hatches are opened, shut, opened again. Bilge sounded, sails tallied, knots examined for haste or care. 9 casks of alcohol prove empty. Their staves American oak, more porous, their fumes capable of turning air into a rumor of fire. A makeshift sounding line lies coiled by the rail as if someone had measured depth and then measured fear. The yawl's painter, rope that should have kept ship and boat married, shows fibers worn, perhaps cut by friction, perhaps by choice. In the great cabin, Sarah's daybook is absent. Her trunk remains, clothing carefully folded. Briggs' chronometer ticks with perfect indifference. The crew's gear sits in its places with the patience of tools. There are no scars that mutiny leaves, none of the messy arithmetic of piracy. Yet the pump's complaint and the damp reek of the hold suggest a ship that might have looked worse than it was. A prudent captain, reading scattered signs as a single sentence, might have ordered a temporary retreat. And there is the weather, reports of waterspouts and sudden squalls from other ships passing these longitudes. A reign of pressure changes, a sky that made its own rules. The boarding party, men who prefer facts to fables, sketch possibilities in their heads. A fearful blast of fumes, a hasty ventilation, hatches off, a glimpse of something that looked like fire and was air playing a trick. Then the lifeboat, prudently manned, paid out behind on a line until panic or wind or the knife of a wave took the choice away. The Mary Celeste keeps her counsel. A mystery is cruelest when it wears familiar faces. Benjamin Briggs, devout, temperate, a captain whose restraint made crews trust the orders they did not like, has left only neat handwriting and a hat on its peg. Sarah's small touches linger. A hem mended with fine thread, a child's dress aired by a window, a Bible's ribbon placed as if the sentence would be finished after tea. The crew, 7 men with 7 backstories that the sea has a habit of flattening, are present only in the geometry of their tools. On the table, a half-written letter to no one in particular describes a day of wind that came and went. a rough sea that moderated, a ship that felt sound. There is no grammar for the hour when ordinary becomes absurd. Sailors carry charms not because they believe in magic, but because they respect habit. The little tokens remain, waiting for hands that do not return. On a bunk, a pipe rests where a mouth once found peace during the long watches. We tell ourselves that people leave traces that add to an answer. Sometimes they add only to the ache. The child's slate with its cloudy ghosts of chalk. The mother's folded things. The captain's instruments that insist the world can be measured. These combine into a shape you can see and not name. In that quiet, the boarding party works harder at their facts, because facts are the last kindness they can extend to the missing. Later, in Gibraltar, the inquiry will weigh each scrap, the empty casks, the pumps, the lifeboat gone, the ship sound enough to sail. Experts will argue that alcohol fumes, invisible and terrifying, can bloom into a phantom explosion. No flame, only a concussion of air that slaps the face, turns prudence into urgency. We can imagine Briggs ordering hatches flung wide. Crew mustered, lines paid out to tow the yawl while the ship breathes. A squall arrives, a sea rises, the painter parts. The boat, now a separate world, cannot claw back against a panicked sky. Another reconstruction favors misread depth. Water in the hold sounding worse because the clogged pump lied, a belief that the hull is surrendering. There is a version with a waterspout striking near enough to persuade any mortal of a universe momentarily rearranged. There is always the theory of men turning on men. The evidence refuses it, a mercy without comfort. Each path ends in the same wide place. A small boat alone on the Atlantic, a ship sailing on under the unhelpful sun. What is certain is the negative space. No bodies found along the island's lee shores. No dockside boasts or confessions. No sale of stolen cargo. The Mary Celeste reaches port under strangers' hands, and the ledger receives her. The people do not. The Gibraltar court, suspicious by habit, sniffs for fraud and finds none strong enough to hold. Salvage is awarded with stinginess that implies doubt. The myth grows in the space the money does not fill. Newspapers discover appetite where evidence thins, and the phrase ghost ship acquires its modern polish. Meanwhile, the brigantine herself endures. Rigging tarred, seams caulked, cargoes carried, until, years later, a different captain conspires to wreck her for insurance on a Haitian reef. Even legends are not spared petty endings, yet stand before the case where a compass from a similar ship sits under glass, and you will hear the quiet argument of the Mary Celeste. That human order, carefully made, can be interrupted without malice or meaning by the wide, cold patience of water and air. The names, Briggs, Sarah, Sophia, 7 men who fed lines through calloused hands, remain as steady as metal stamps on a bell. The rest is weather. If you sail that latitude at dawn, the sea often looks newly planned, as if last night it considered starting over. You can almost believe a missing yawl will shoulder up out of the glitter and ask for a line. We keep telling the story, not because it promises an answer, but because it honors a question. What, in the last exact minute, persuades a good captain to step away from his ship? The ocean, unhurried, does not reply. The canvas fills, the wake writes, the horizon erases.